Good afternoon, my friends. This afternoon, I wanted to take a minute to go through my last video of the jam session that I posted. Had a question on Reddit about my setup, how I set up the whole audio unit and got everything going. So everything is running in AUM, which is a wonderful host app. If you've never messed around with it, I strongly suggest AUM. It is fantastic. I've even got my vocals recording there on channel 8 for this video. And I'm recording the video just using my iPad Pro's screen capture. So for this little jam session, I just wanted to play around some more with the Spectrum Synthesizer's Resonator, which is basically rings from Mutable Instruments. It's a reworking of that digitally, which has a built-in LFO. It's got this lovely little matrix here, which does some cool stuff. You can play around with the envelope. You can adjust what the matrix controls. And I've really barely even broken the surface on what's going on there. But that was essentially why I wanted to do this video. So I want to go through my connections, how everything's set up, play a little bit, and then we'll call it good. If you really want to hear the jam in full sequence, go check out that video. It's about 12 and a half minutes long or so. So first off, channel 1 here is, of course, the Resonator as I just pulled up. And I've got my effects chain over to the left of it. I have going into granular, which is basically clouds. Same setup as clouds, but again, it adds this cool little XY matrix thing. You've got your blend LFO stuff. You can automatically set an LFO into it. Having that built in is really nice. Some envelope, and you can control where that envelope goes, and then the matrix. I'm using Bleece Reverb. I'm a huge fan of Bleece Reverb. As you can see, I've even got it on my voice over here as well as the drums. And then I'm running into the Cosmonaut. The Cosmonaut is the coolest multi-tap delay. I absolutely love it. I tend to just hit the random button and let it find a cool delay, and then I'll bring in the looper as I want to. And for this one, I'm doing something special, which I'll show off in just a second. So the Midi that's controlling the Resonator, what's actually playing the Resonator, is the Collider from Rosetta. This is from the Rosetta suite by Brambos. And I love this. It's a random melodic generator. We've got this grid, as you can see here, and whenever I play the grid, you can start to see all those little hadrons bouncing around. And every time they hit a wall, it makes a note. And every time I've got this collision sounds button pressed, so when they collide with each other, it also plays a note, which I think is really cool. Now, you may notice that it's shifting around. There's some stuff moving on its own. That is coming from the Rosetta LFO, which is also part of the suite. So the first thing I want to show is how I connected those and got them running together. So over here in Collider, I actually have it set to receive a signal from the LFO, which is the one at channel 2. You can also go to your MIDI routing, and I've got that same LFO over here controlling my MIDI control, which is the second one down on the right side. And that MIDI control lets you tap into anything that is able to be controlled through the MIDI control in the menu there on the far right. So if I go to this bottom right where it says MIDI control, I can select my Resonator, and you can look at different things there and see what all can be controlled there. In this case, though, I'm going into MIDI channel 2, and the Rosetta Collider, I'm controlling some stuff there. So I have the velocity being controlled by channel 1, CC17, which is the bottom LFO in Rosetta LFO. So that's controlling this velocity fader here, which is changing the velocity of the different notes. I like that to be kind of random. So as you can see, I've got it set to a sample and hold in the LFO that's moving pretty quickly. And that just gives each note a little bit of life. And I like that a lot. The ones that are running by default from LFO into the Collider through this connection is controlling the number of hadrons there are, the number of little circles that you see. And as that adjusts, it adds more and more notes that have a possibility of hitting there. And having that change periodically, again, adds a little bit of life. If that stays steady, then you end up with a repetitive pattern. And I wanted something with a little bit more life to it. Sort of repetitive and similar throughout the whole piece, but I wanted it to evolve as it went along. That's something that I'm a big fan of. So those two things I have being controlled. And then the other thing that this LFO is controlling is in Cosmonaut, the off level, and I'll just move the knob there so you can see what I'm talking about, is being controlled. So if I hit play, you see all those 4 little knobs start moving around. Now 2 of them, the 11/16 and the 20/16, move a little bit slower, and they are together. That's just because I was limited. I could have added another LFO if I wanted them to go separately, but I didn't really care that much. I was pretty happy with the sound that I was getting from that. And again, that was set up by going to Midi controller, going to channel 1 Resonator, and then scrolling down to the Cosmonaut, and here you can see all of the different parameters that you can change. So you can see I've got delay level 1 coming from channel 1 CC15, delay level 2 and 4 are coming from CC13, and delay level 3 is coming from CC17, which is the same one that's controlling the velocity in the collider. And there's a lot more stuff you could do there to make it more automated. I just kind of wanted to get things going, and I was pretty happy with the sound that I came up with. So with all that stuff going on, if I slowly bring up this channel, you can start to hear the resonator doing its thing. And I absolutely love that sound, kind of an electric marimba sound with the collider producing just a really beautiful Phrygian melody. I love the Phrygian sound. It's so mysterious and spooky. And then you can see how the delay is affected there. Now through most of this, I had the looper, the sound on sound looper, turned up a little bit so that you're getting a repeat every 6 beats or so, the length of the tape. My DSP is maxing out a little bit since I'm recording the voice as well. So you may hear a few clicks and blips in there that are not intentional. So that's how I've got channel 1 set up. Pretty lovely stuff on its own. I mean, I could put my headphones on and listen to that for hours and hours and hours and enjoy it. So I'm going to bring that back down. In channel 3, I have my bass line, which is coming from the trusty Moog Model D app. Just a great sounding synthesizer. I got it on sale for Black Friday, and I've just been super happy with it. I love the Moog Model 15 and the Model D. Are just both great sounding synths. So in the Model D, I am on one of the built-in bass tracks there, and this is the wide chorus. So I'm going to turn that off so you can hear just the synth by itself. Some great sounding bass there. It's got a big wide chorus to it. You know, knock me for doing a preset if you want. I did alter a few things to make it sound the way I wanted. I also have, so this is being sequenced by cells. I've got 6 different notes here that all come from the D Phrygian scale. I think it's like D, B flat, C, A flat, G, and F. I don't think I included the E flat in there. And I've got it set to be 2 bars long with a gate of 125% so that it'll hang on just a little bit for each note as it changes notes. Gives it a nice smooth change from note to note with the Model D. And then I have an LFO running on this channel, which is controlling some of the parameters in the Model D. So if I start this, I may need to turn it down so you can hear my voice. So if I start my sequence going, we start it so a note starts, you can see the cutoff frequency on the right side of Model D is kind of slowly moving. I believe that's coming from CC13. I can double check that over here. Again, I've got that LFO at MIDI channel 4 controlling my MIDI control, and then I go into Model D, parameters, and I have CC15, so the second LFO controlling the filter modulation, and then CC13, the top LFO, is controlling the filter cutoff. So again, just adding a little bit of life to it, keeping it from being too static. If I turn that off, if I just turn off the LFO, you get the straight bass sound. And that sounds really great. I mean, it's a nice sounding synthesizer on its own. But you add that in, and you really start to get that little bit of life in it. Again, I could just listen to that all day long. So you have that bass line, you add in the Resonator stuff. And that's just a lovely, lovely sound by itself. Nice and warm and rich and spacey and dreamy and all the things that I want in ambient music. I love it. But I'm also a sucker for a groove. So I have some drum stuff set up here as well. I've got my drums split into two different channels. Channel 7 is Resonator Noir, which I just have set on the classic kick setting, and I changed the step resolution to 16 and just randomly put in a little bit of a bass line here, and that creates this really cool little bass line groove. I love the Resonator Noir for kick lines. It's just such a cool sound. It's rich and full and exciting, and I love it. Sometimes I control it with something like particles or rhythm or XOX or something like that, but I really like even just letting it run on its own sequencer there. And you can get, you can pull up some bit drive if you want to get a little bit dirtier. I didn't for this one. I wanted it nice and round. So that's just a real simple little bass drum. Now for the other drums, I've got quite a setup going here. As you can see, I have my Resonator FM, and this is set to one of the presets. Let me see if I can see which one it's in. I don't think it'll show me what it's currently attached to. I don't remember which one it is off the top of my head, but it's just one of the built-in presets. And I have Rosetta Rhythm, which is a Euclidean drum machine, sequencing that. Now, I did have to go in and remap the MIDI channels to make sense so that it's sending the right MIDI channels into Resonator FM and save it, because Resonator FM is not one of the preset maps there. I do wish that Bram would add that in there so that you didn't have to do it automatically, but I don't mind doing it manually there, and I've got it saved as a preset here so that if I need to get to it, I can. So for the rhythm, I did the dice with the random pattern. I love that. Just randomize a pattern and find something I like and let it go. And actually in that video that I posted yesterday, I change up the pattern in there a little bit so you hear the change. So if I take out all the effects in here and turn this up a little bit, you can kind of hear the basic. Almost sounds like it's coming out of a 70s Thomas organ or something like that. So then I add a few effects to it, of course, because that's what I like to do. I've got Cosmonaut giving us a nice delay, and I do have a little bit of looping set on there. I've got the ambiance cranked up, so it's getting some reverb in there just from that. And again, I just kind of went through random and found one that I liked. I like the sound of it. Add a little bit more reverb. Again, coming from Blease. And then I love this DS9 overdrive from Blamsoft. It's basically a tube screamer, an Ibanez tube screamer. If you're a guitar head, you are familiar with that pedal. We all use it. I have a physical one sitting next to me, actually, hooked up to my telly. So that just gives it that little bit of overdriven spank. And you can see that I've got the drive in the mix pretty low, but I just like that little bit of grit in there for this one. There are times when I go ahead and crank it up and get a real nice dirty sound. But that's just not what I was looking for this one. I wanted something a little bit more tame. Still just a little bit of dirt there. The perforator, I've got, so without the perforator, you can hear it kind of clean, and the perforator is just glitching it out a little bit. I did a random pattern here, and then I've got one of the LFOs controlling the dry wet knob so that it's kind of randomly shifting into a drier or wetter sound, which adds that little bit of glitch to it. And again, it's a very live sounding glitch. It sounds like I'm actually twisting the knob over here, which when I'm not, I don't have to because the LFO can do that for me. And then this filter, you'll notice I've got it set to a really low cutoff. So this is how I brought it in. I started with the low and bring in that low pass filter so it kind of sounds like almost like a marching band drum line coming down the block. And I just love that sound. I mean, that's the coolest sound. Who doesn't love a great filter sweep like that? And I've got some of the highs cut off of it. I mean, I could pull it a little further if I wanted to, but I like where it is. And I do like adding the ×2 on there just to give it that little bit of nasal quality and giving that little peak right at the cutoff point. So I've got that, and then I add the bass drum to it. And it almost sounds polyrhythmic, but it has a nice little groove to it that I really enjoy. You can hear that delay starting to fade out. I love that too, that I can hit the stop button and let the delays fade out. I use that quite a bit in my tunes and my jams. So that's basically how the whole thing is patched together. So I'll just kind of do a quick like micro version of the jam of how I brought everything in. I think I remember the correct order that I brought everything in. We'll see. So let's turn it back on. And we'll bring in the resonator. And just to kind of demo some of the stuff you can do with the resonator, if you bring the matrix up, just get some drastically different sounds. Just by playing with that little XY matrix. Really cool stuff there. Nice little bass note added. I like that. Right, we bring in our bass drum here. So the way that our clouds is working, it's almost a little bit off beat. When I actually started the other video with the clouds matrix way up, so it had this like crazy noise sound to it, and then faded that out, and as the delay loop slowly goes away, you start to hear the resonator in there a little bit clearer. That was a happy accident. I actually didn't know that I had that cranked up when I started it, and I was going, why does that sound so weird? And I liked it, so I left it. So fade up my bass line. And you can see the bass line shifting notes through cells. Got that filter cut off, doing kind of the slow sweep from the LFO. My collider's going crazy over here. got something controlling the pitch apparently as well. And you'll notice that you can, well, let's bring in these other drums and I'll get to that. So I didn't do my filter in there, I just faded it in, but you've got the idea. So starting to sound really interesting and polyrhythmic. And I like to, change the clock division on the Collider occasionally. I just tried to talk while soloing and I realized you couldn't hear my voice there for a second. So I'm going to solo it so you can hear just the resonator. And as you heard there, I like to play around with kicking it up to 30-second note clock division. Just gives it a little bit of energy for a second. Almost like doing a drum fill. And then pull it back down. And one of the things I like to do to fade my stuff out, just to let it start breathing and winding down, I'll pull my drums out. Go ahead and pull the bass line out. Let the resonator just kind of sing on its own. And then I'll turn off the LFO so it kind of smooths out the motion a little bit. And I'll start pulling down the number of hadrons we have. The fewer hadrons, the fewer collisions, therefore fewer notes being played. Of course, with the delay happening there, you can really start to hear everything. So I'll pull that down. Maybe take my grid size down a little bit. Pull that down to quarter notes. So they get fewer and farther between. Just really let it wind down. And I don't think I did it with this video, but one of the things I love to do is once I really get it to where there's not a lot going on, and you can hear the delay start to chill, bring up the loop a little bit. Just slowly mellowing out a little bit, like we've reached the end of our meditation, kind of, which is how this works for me. I'll eventually go down to just one lonely little hadron that'll bounce back and forth. And then I'll turn it off. But as long as I have the volume up, you'll hear the delay. So everything happening right now is coming from the cosmonaut. And you can just kind of let it go, let it fade on out. So that's a little bit of a peek behind the curtain into my workflow, how I do things. Always save stuff. I go in pretty regularly and hit save so that I don't lose things. There we go. We are saved, so we're good. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you want me to do more of these kind of things, talking you through different apps, let me know in the comments. Of course, always like and subscribe and all that stuff. Let me know that people are interested, and I'll keep making these. I have a pretty easy full-time job where I can get out and make a video every couple of days or so. Sometimes on my lunch break, I'll put together a little 15-minute jam and get it uploaded. But I do want to keep doing that. So just let me know if you're interested in it, if you want me to do these little talk-throughs. If you're interested in seeing my beautiful face, I can do a setup where I have a camera on me if you care. Otherwise, I'll just keep recording the screen and throwing my voice in it and doing all the good stuff for you. Thank you guys for listening. My name is Logan Jacob. You can find me on Facebook at fb.me/LoganJacobMusic or soundcloud.com/Logan Jacob. Search Bandcamp for Logan Jacob. If you want to buy any of my music on there, I would certainly appreciate that. And of course, always on the YouTubes. Thank you guys very much, and I will see you next time.